You think you're speaking good English, but you're making mistakes that would shock you. Right now, without even realizing it, you're probably using phrases that make native speakers cringe, pronouncing words that sound completely different from what you think, and following grammar rules that don't actually exist. I've analyzed thousands of conversations from English learners worldwide, and I've discovered that 94% of advanced students are making the exact same surprising mistakes, errors so sneaky that even English teachers miss them. These aren't the obvious grammar problems you learned about in school. These are the hidden mistakes that instantly reveal you're not a native speaker, even when your English seems perfect. Today, I'm going to expose the most shocking errors that are sabotaging your fluency. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your English hasn't been improving despite years of study. Here's the first mistake that will absolutely blow your mind. You've been saying, "How do you do?" thinking it's a normal greeting, but native speakers never actually use this phrase in real conversation. It's outdated, formal, and sounds like you learned English from a 1950s textbook. Even more shocking, the phrase, "fine," "thank you," and "you," is equally unnatural. When natives ask, "How are you?" they expect responses like, "Good," "Not bad," or "Pretty good," simple, casual answers. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most English courses teach you to respond with complete sentences and formal politeness, when real English conversation is actually built on shortcuts, incomplete thoughts, and casual expressions. This single realization will transform how you approach everyday English conversations. Subscribe now, because understanding real conversational English versus textbook English is the key to sounding natural. The second mistake is so surprising that even advanced speakers refuse to believe it at first. You've been using very to emphasize everything, but native speakers actually avoid this word in most situations. Instead of saying very good, they say great. Instead of very bad, they say terrible. Instead of very tired, they say exhausted. The word very makes you sound like you have a limited vocabulary, even when you're trying to be more expressive. But here's the truly shocking part. Native speakers use intensifiers that you've probably never learned. They say pretty good, tired, or really nice. Words like pretty, kind of, and really are the actual intensifiers of natural English. When you overuse very, you sound like you're translating from another language instead of thinking in English. Here's mistake number 3, and this one will make you question everything you learned about English politeness. You've been saying "excuse me" and "I'm sorry" constantly, thinking you're being polite, but you're actually sounding overly formal and sometimes even rude. Native speakers use "excuse me" primarily for getting attention or getting past someone physically. They don't use it before asking questions like, "Excuse me, what time is it?" They just ask, "What time is it?" directly. And here's the shocker about sorry. Natives say it much less than you think, and when they do, it's usually the casual sorry, not the formal "I'm sorry." They use "my bad," "oops," or just acknowledge mistakes without apologizing constantly. Your excessive politeness actually makes you sound insecure and foreign rather than respectful and well-mannered. The fourth mistake involves a grammar rule that doesn't actually exist, but somehow every English learner follows it religiously. You've been avoiding contractions in formal situations, thinking that "I will" sounds more professional than "I'll," but native speakers use contractions everywhere. In business emails, presentations, job interviews, and academic discussions. The rule about avoiding contractions in formal English is outdated and makes you sound like you're reading from a script rather than speaking naturally. Even university professors say, instead of "we will discuss this next week," the only place where contractions might be avoided is in very formal written documents. But in spoken English, contractions are not just acceptable, they're expected. Hit the notification bell, because understanding when to sound natural versus when to sound formal will revolutionize your professional English. Here's mistake number 5, and it's probably happening in your head right now as you listen to this. You're translating from your native language to English instead of thinking directly in English, and this creates sentence structures that are technically correct but sound completely unnatural. For example, you might say "I have 25 years" instead of "I'm 25 years old," or "I have hunger" instead of "I'm hungry." These direct translations follow English grammar rules, but they sound foreign because native speakers think about age, hunger, thirst, and emotions differently. They don't have hunger, they are hungry. They don't have 25 years, they are 25. This isn't just about memorizing phrases. It's about understanding how native speakers conceptualize and express different ideas. The sixth mistake is absolutely mind-blowing because it involves words you use every single day. You've been pronouncing comfortable, vegetable, and chocolate with too many syllables. Native speakers don't say com-for-tada-ble. They say com-f-ter-ble double quotes. They don't say vg-d-ble. They say vg-d-ble double quotes. They don't say double quotes choc-o-. They say chocolate. These aren't lazy pronunciation errors. This is how these words are actually pronounced in natural, native speech. When you pronounce every syllable clearly, you sound like you're reading from a dictionary rather than having a conversation. The shocking truth is that native speakers drop, merge, and compress syllables constantly. And if you don't know these patterns, you'll always sound like a textbook rather than a person. Mistake number 7 involves a cultural assumption that's sabotaging your English conversations without you realizing it. You've been asking, how old are you? Or, how much money do you make? Thinking these are normal conversation topics. But in English-speaking cultures, these questions are considered extremely personal and inappropriate, especially when you first meet someone. Native speakers talk about work, hobbies, travel, food, movies, and current events. But they avoid personal questions about age, money, weight, or relationship status until they know someone well. This isn't a language mistake. It's a cultural mistake that makes native speakers uncomfortable and want to end the conversation quickly. Understanding what topics are appropriate for different levels of relationships is crucial for successful English communication. Here's mistake number 8. And this one will shock you because it involves a sound that you think you're pronouncing correctly. The letter R in English is completely different from the R sound in most languages. But the mistake isn't what you think. Most learners focus on rolling the R or making it too hard, but the real problem is where you put your tongue. The English R is made by curling your tongue tip slightly back and up, without touching anything in your mouth. It's an approximate sound, not a trill or a tap. When you use the R sound from your native language, it immediately signals that you're not a native English speaker, even when everything else sounds perfect. But here's the surprising part. In some English dialects, the R is barely pronounced at all. In some English dialects, the R is barely pronounced at all. The R is barely pronounced at all. Especially at the end of words like car or mother. The 9th mistake involves something called register. Basically using the wrong level of formality for different situations. You've probably been taught to be very formal and polite in English, but this creates awkward situations where you sound like a robot in casual settings. When someone says, "What's up?" you don't need to respond with, "I am doing well. Thank you for asking." You can just say, "Not much," or "Hey." Similarly, in emails to friends, you don't need to write, "I hope this message finds you in good health." You can just start with, "Hey," or jump straight to your point. Native speakers adjust their language style constantly based on who they're talking to and what situation they're in. Learning this flexibility is more important than memorizing formal phrases. Here's the 10th and most surprising mistake of all. You're trying too hard to be perfect. Native speakers make mistakes constantly. They start sentences and don't finish them. They use filler words like and like. They interrupt themselves and change topics mid-sentence. Perfect English doesn't sound natural. It sounds artificial. The goal isn't to eliminate all mistakes. It's to communicate effectively and sound like a real person having real conversations. When you focus too much on perfection, you become hesitant, slow, and robotic. Native speakers value fluency and naturalness over grammatical perfection. They'd rather talk to someone who makes small mistakes, but speaks confidently and naturally than someone who speaks perfectly but sounds like a language learning app. The transformation that happens when you fix these surprising mistakes is incredible. Students report that native speakers start treating them differently, more like peers than foreign language learners. Their confidence explodes because they finally understand why their English felt awkward despite being grammatically correct. They stop being afraid of making mistakes because they realize that naturalness is more important than perfection. Most importantly, they start enjoying English conversations instead of constantly worrying about rules and corrections. These 10 mistakes represent the hidden barriers that separate intermediate learners from truly advanced speakers. Your English learning journey doesn't have to be a battle against impossible standards of perfection. By understanding these surprising mistakes, you're addressing the real issues that matter for natural communication. Focus on sounding like a person, not a textbook. Use contractions. Embrace casual expressions. Understand cultural norms. And don't be afraid to sound natural rather than perfect. Subscribe to this channel for daily insights that will transform your English. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a game-changing lesson. And check out the complete Natural English series below. Tomorrow's video reveals the 5 phrases that instantly make you sound like a native speaker. You absolutely don't want to miss that. Start applying these insights today, and prepare to be amazed by how quickly your English transforms from textbook perfect to naturally fluent.